Thank you to Professor Francione, Professor Charlton, and the organisers of the World Vegan Summit 2016 for this opportunity to speak to you today. In 2005, I was asked to speak to a group of first-year health and education students at the local university here in Bendigo. Now, when I introduced myself, I told them a little bit about me. That I was single, that I lived with my canine companion, a Kelpie, and my favourite music is classical, and that my favourite sport is cricket. I'm a total cricket tragic. And that I enjoyed spending time with friends, having meals, going for coffees. And the last thing I told them was, I'm a transsexual. I told them this last because I wanted them to understand that being a transsexual, a trans man, was not everything about me. That we had more in common with each other than not, and that we were more the same than different. But there have been times when being a trans man was everything about me. When I was first finding my way from living as a female and transitioning to a male, all that I could think about, every action I took, every decision I made was about being trans. Suddenly decisions about my health, my employment, my friendships, and even which toilet I went to became daily issues. Of course, my identity as a trans man was also a positive experience at times, as I was excited about going on to hormones, having surgery, and being referred to by others in a way that finally validated my innermost identity. And then in 2013, whilst exploring a whole foods plant-based diet for health reasons, I came across a video on YouTube. You probably have had this experience where you're watching a video, then you're linked to another one, and all of a sudden you're recommended to a whole host of videos. That's what happened to me, and fortunately I found a video by Professor Gary Francione talking at a university, giving a keynote speech to a group of students. Now, there were several things that I learned at that time about the dairy industry and the egg industry, but the one thing that stood out for me more than anything else was that there was no moral difference between my beautiful canine companions and any other non-human animal on the planet, be they fish, chicken, cow, lobster, pig, gorilla, sheep, or rat. And it was after watching this video that I had one of those light bulb moments. I could no longer eat or wear or exploit animals for my own pleasure or convenience. And on that night, I went vegan. I had made the connection. And the connection didn't stop there, because from reading Professor Gary Francione's essays and books and learning a whole lot more about ethical veganism, I realized that there was more to it than just eating a vegan diet. Now, as a gay trans man, I have witnessed members of my community, the LGBTIQ community, engage in vicious, sexist, racist, and ableist behaviours on Facebook and in real life. And this all makes no sense to me. Here we have individuals such as myself who are victims of discrimination, bigotry, and sometimes violence, who use the same language and behaviours to make others feel small, less than, or different. So I understood that to stop at advocating for trans issues or LGBTIQ issues and not considering other forms of discrimination was like saying that bigotry, hate and violence against me or against us is unfair, but doesn't apply to other persons or even other sentient beings. If it's wrong to single out one group as being different or other or less than, then it's wrong across the board. And advocating for veganism as a moral baseline takes nothing away from the importance of human rights issues. Professor Francione has said, even if you think that any and all human rights issues are more important than the issue of animal exploitation, you have to eat while you are fighting for those great causes. How does eating, for example, tofu instead of steak impede your ability to fight for human rights causes? It doesn't. If anything, a healthy vegan diet will give you more energy to pursue those causes. End quote. If we see the oppression, discrimination, and violence towards individuals purely based on their otherness as morally wrong, then we must also recognize that exploiting and using all sentient beings as morally wrong. Discrimination and oppression exists as a way of excluding some individuals from our moral consideration because they are different or are perceived as less than. Every serious and thoughtful social justice activist, and I speak to the LGBTIQ community when I say this, every single serious and thoughtful social justice activist should by default be vegan, just as every vegan should by default reject sexism, racism, ableism, heterosexism, transphobia, ageism, and speciesism. The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. Please, if you value justice, if you believe in fairness, if you value equality, reject discrimination, violence, and oppression of all sentient beings, and be vegan.